Isotope-8. How can it work for my characters? What does it do? Does it help my character's stats, ability, and progression? Definitely, 100%. Let's go ahead and talk about it. To use your ISO-8, you want to just go ahead and get in the character screen, click on any character, and there on the right side, you see that gray area, that is the ISO-8 interface. So you go ahead and click on that and it'll take you to this screen here. So here, once again, you have a little more close-up view of the ISO-8 interface. There are 5 slots which represent different stat classes that you will increase as you add more and more ISO-8 into it. Within those 5 slots are 5 more smaller levels. As you can see, those are the yellow glowing items there. That just indicates that I can add more ISO to those spots. So there's 5 levels within the 5 slots that you can improve upon. Each of those slots, once again, ties into a certain stat for your character. So this one here, number 1, if we're starting on the full left side going clockwise, as you can see from the screen, it will increase your armor stat. Second, this one will increase your resistance. At the 12 o'clock spot, we have health, followed by focus, and finally damage. So just to reiterate, simply by adding ISO-8 to these areas, you increase your character's stats. Very important. Stat progression is huge in this game, not something we want to take lightly. So how do we go about doing this? How does it work? Well, there's a 3-step process. Step number 1, you can see the arrow there. Hopefully we're pointing again to that, a little bit past that green plus sign, which just means I have ISO-8 to put there. There are the 5 smaller rectangles. So those are 5 stages of growth that I can use when I put ISO-8 on that character. So if you go up there to the number 2, what you see is those 5 stages of growth. So each of those spots, right, cost a certain amount of those little ISO-8 currencies or little ISO-8 crystals to improve that character. It increases with each level. It starts out at 1 to 2, going up to, you'll need 84 of those items to make it to level 5. Not only do you need to acquire more of those crystals, but they are specific to the class of character. So on the left hand side there, we're talking about Vol. You see the circle, we're talking about Vol, and Vol is a brawler. So to power up that particular section, you need brawler armor ISO-8. So that's the picture that you have there. The little green shield with the fist is brawler ISO-8. So this is where the variability comes in. This is the RNG, what people are talking about. This is where the variability comes in. You will get various types of ISO-8 as you play the game, and they have to match a character class and an ISO-8 type for it to be of use. And as you fill up those stats, you go to the number 3 there. As you fill up those little rectangles, if you get a 1 all the way around in all 5 of the areas, then you'll get one of those at the bottom, the blacked out ones, you'll get one of those to light up. You will then be at ISO-8 level 1. As you get 2 in each category, ISO-8 level 2, 3, and so on. So then how do you do this? Where do you get these various pieces of ISO-8 that you can use to power up your characters? In the lower right hand corner, you see the equip button, which I would use if I had ISO-8 to fill those in. And above that, there's the find button. So since we have this brawler armor ISO-8 highlighted, we clicked on it. We can now click find. By clicking the find tab, it'll bring you to this screen here. So as we can see on the far left, there's orbs that will give you various types of ISO-8. Obviously there in the middle, the yellow section, there's deals. You can buy it for money. I'm not advocating that, but the window here does give us a nice illustration of the variety of things that are available. So if you look up at the top, all the way at the top of the page, it says T1 Brawler Damage Level 5 ISO-8. Okay, so then we look at where the offers are there. You see this is all for brawlers. Buy the purple fist And then there's different shapes of the ISO 8. So those 5 different shapes correspond with the 5 different types, right? That clock, once again, from the interface from earlier that we went clockwise, right? That had the health, damage, resist. Those are the different pieces that will fit into those various slots. So sometimes you might need to farm specific ones. Like it says, maybe just you need some of that brawler damage ISO. How would you do that? Well, again, maybe it's in the orbs, or conversely, as we see here, it's lit up on the right side, ISO 8 supply. So there is a supply store for ISO 8. So you could click on that. If we do, here it is. It brings us to the ISO 8 store. Now we're looking at the store part there, the red square that's lit up, right? That's the brawler damage ISO. So that's the screen that we just came from. And it's showing us, here it is in the ISO store. It shows us how much we have, and it shows us how much it costs. In this case, it costs us 15K of this. These are ISO ions. So up at the top of the screen, you see where there's gold, there's power cores, gold, there's these green ISO ions, and there's blue ISO ions. Up at the top where the yellow, the yellow oval is. So the point here is there is a currency. There is a currency that is used to improve your character that you have to spend to get this ISO 8, to acquire it, and to use it to level the character up in the ISO 8 screen. Much in the same way that you would use gold to improve a character's gear tier, you use these ISO 8 ions to improve their level when we're talking about ISO 8. So at times it may also be good simply to farm these, just the ions, in the campaign, which we'll see later, just so you have enough of that currency to keep the characters powering up. Now let's take a look at the second half. This is back at the Find tab, and this is the second half of the options that were available when you clicked Find. So at the far right, it gives you nodes to farm, right? So here are 2 nodes that I could go to get to farm that brawler damage ISO 8. All right, so on the far right side, I used all that one up. And the one next to that, I can do a couple more, right? I can do a couple more. So if you have a slot that you need more of, you can either get it from the store, you can farm it in the nodes, and sometimes it will drop in orbs like anything else in the game. So just to reiterate, you can go into the campaign section, just like you can go to your heroes campaign, villains campaign. There's also an isotope-8 campaign. The original one we see there on the far left of the screen, that's for farming your green ISO. In the newest edition, as we see on the far right of the screen, the hard difficulty, that is for farming the blue ISO, because there's a progression system. Like anything else in this game, there's a progression system. You start off in the green area, right? So here's a picture of that, and there's those ions, and then we can see from the things you can get from the store of various crystals for various, right, like brawlers, protectors, things like that you can put in those different slots. And this is mirrored in the blue section. So once again, here in the hard mode, here's blue isotope-8 ions, right? That's the currency used to power the characters up, and the crystals, which go into those different slots that work around the interface. So again, you can come to the campaign and farm specific crystals and or ions if that's what you need for your progression. It works once again just like character progression. So here's just a random character that I have low on my stats, Jessica Jones. So she has green gear on right now. So we're not looking at the ISO, we're just looking at the gear. She has green gear, right? The rings around her character are green. So after I were to fill in all of those slots, all 6 of those gear slots, I can hit upgrade like you see in the middle, and then it goes to blue at some point, right? We do all the green area, you upgrade the character, and now it becomes blue. It's the type of gear that I need to acquire. So ISO 8 works the same way. You will get all the green, you'll fill up all 5 of those slots, and then you can expand, upgrade into the blue ISO 8 and fill out all those slots yet again. We haven't talked about this empty section in the middle yet. This is where you choose your ISO-8 class. So the crystals on the outside of the interface increase your character's stats. Your ISO-8 class is going to interface with your character's abilities. So very important to choose an appropriate ISO-8 class to take advantage of what your character does well. There are 5 ISO-8 classes: Striker, Fortifier, Healer, Skirmisher, and Raider. 3 of these are offensive, 2 of these are defensive. Let's explain how they work and what you might want to consider when choosing each class. We'll start with Skirmisher. For the Skirmisher, on a primary hit, it applies a vulnerable, as you can see the word there in purple, vulnerable to the primary target. These effects can also occur on assist and counterattacks. So again, to reiterate, a character that has Skirmisher is just going to place this vulnerable, a purple target, on the character. So as we can see in this picture, we have Captain America. He has that purple target over his head. So I have hit him with a character and placed a vulnerable on him. The vulnerable itself doesn't do anything, but it does allow you to use the other ISO-8 classes to take advantage of this situation. Let's see how. Next, we have the Striker ISO-8 class. It says on primary hit, if the target is vulnerable, make an ISO bonus attack at 50% damage, then clear 1 vulnerable. This attack is based on the character's basic. So this is like a extra assist. So Captain America in the picture has the vulnerable. If I use a character that is a striker and attack that character again, the character that I use to make that attack will get an extra hit. So we see Heimdall has the vulnerable in this video. Union Jack makes an attack on his basic, and as you saw there, he made an extra striker attack. So he attacked twice on his basic because the opponent had the vulnerable. Third, we have Raider. On an active ability crit, apply 1 vulnerable up to a maximum of 3. So with the Raider class, if the character scores a critical hit, they will put a vulnerable on the target. Like it says, up to a maximum of 3. So what we're seeing is an offensive pattern. You need someone to place a vulnerable, and then you need someone to attack that character to take advantage and get the double hits. So we have here, we have Quicksilver, and you see that he attacked Scarlet Witch 3 times and put 3 vulnerables on him. All right, because he critted each time. So that was a single target. He placed 3 vulnerables. And there it is again. Now, Symbiote Spider-Man also has the Skirmisher ISO. Raider. He has the Raider ISO. He did not critical hit, even though he hit multiple people, so no vulnerables would apply. He hit people, but he did not get a critical, so no vulnerables were applied. Now, Spider-Punk, he hits different targets, gets critical, and he placed vulnerables on all the targets. So the Raider can either place, if they have a multiple attack that hits 1 target, they can place up to 3 vulnerables on 1 target. If they hit multiple targets, they can place 1 or more on each. So those 3 were our offensive options. Now let's switch over and talk about the defensive side for a little bit. Healer. On turn, apply minor regeneration to the most injured ally. And as you increase the level of this, it also increases the healing power, the natural healing power of, we'll say, a healer character. So we have these characters selected. We gave them all healing ISO. Wasp is going to go first. She'll be at the bottom of the screen. She's going to go first. So notice what happens when she takes her first turn. So the characters are loading in. Wasp goes first, and she now has a minor regeneration. So we'll start playing through. There, now she has a second one. We'll start playing through. And we're just watching to see what happens. Wasp has the most damage that has been done to her at this time. So as these other characters take their turns, we're just going to use basic attacks, I believe, just to illustrate. And notice Wasp, right? So she continues to get these minor regenerations because she has the lowest amount of health. And so that's what it does. That's what the healer ISO does. So sometimes people, again, use that with people who are natural healers. And sometimes people use that with a character like Captain America. He's a tank. He's going to take a lot of hits. So if he can heal himself while he's taking those hits, it extends his lifespan, right? Characters, again, he has to have a lot of health to begin with. That's why you would maybe perhaps make a choice for a character like that. But those are usually the two variations of why an individual would choose healer. Now on to the Fortifier. It says on spawn, bury yourself for 10,000 barriers. So barrier is a mechanic in the game. It again kind of adds to your overall health pool. This is not a trait that many people use. So as you can see here, I filtered my roster by Fortifier. Now this is my end game account. So there are no new characters that I have that have the Fortifier trait. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm confused about the trait, but I have not used Fortifier for some time on any character, with the exception of Kingpin, because he already had it when he had his rework. So we just went up from there. So we're going to take these characters in, and we just kind of are going to watch what they do when they take their turn, how they get that barrier. So here we go. Again, as it said, on spawn, the characters get barriers. So we look at Drax. We can see Kingpin back there, that they both have some barrier, right? They have a little bit higher level than the other gentleman. So that's why theirs is a little bit more visible. And again, it is something that not a lot of people use because barrier does have a cap. It has a limit of 30% of your character's max health. So again, sometimes there's other things that are better used than the Fortifier trait. So they might be making some changes to it in the future, and that would be good. That would encourage more people to use it. We're going to skip ahead here and look at Kingpin. At tier 2 level 3, Kingpin gets minor defense up with his Fortify. He gets health regeneration, things like that. So they have made some improvements at the later game. Not sure if that's enough to help you to choose to use it or not. So in this picture, we're just illustrating the progression. So we have Red Hulk here with all 5 of the different ISO-8 crystals filled out. We see to the left the numbers in white, which are his base stats, and the numbers in green, which is the increase in stats from ISO-8. And since we have all 5 filled out all the way, we can now upgrade, as you see at the bottom on the right hand side, for 500 of those ions. And if we do so, that will now take us to ISO-8 blue. So once again, on the left side we see stats, on the right side we see the increase in ISO-8. Just for clarification, the overall jump in stats that you saw, that's not from the ISO-8 itself. We're comparing my new account Red Hulk to my endgame Red Hulk, because that's where they are in their ISO-8 progression. So just want to clarify that. Do not expect a giant jump of that nature just by putting yourself from ISO-8 green to ISO-8 blue. Also, as a side point, we see at the top on the right hand side the different currencies, right? There's that regular blue ISO-8 ion, then there's one with a yellow border around it, and there's one with an even more intricate yellow pattern around it. Those are the end game currencies. You use the blue one to go up to ISO-8 blue level 3. The one in the middle will take you to level 4, and the last one will take you to level 5. Those last 2 currencies are end game currencies. They're extremely rare. When you get to that point, as this guide is basically for the newer player, but as you get to that latter point, please ask the community whether you should spend those ions for whichever character. They are extremely rare. Well, again, there could be further progression by the time you get to this point. Please ask how you should distribute that currency, because it's extremely rare and all characters are not worthy of it. So why are we doing this? Why are we continuing to progress our characters? Well, again, it helps with the character's stats, but it also has to do with progression. There are points in the game that are blocked, they're gated if you do not meet the ISO-8 requirement. For example, if we look at the Doom raid. So let's say you're getting good at Ultimates, you're able to finish your Ultimates raid, you're now ready to progress into Doom raid. Doom 1 First Strike has no ISO requirements. You can just go in there with the specialized teams that you need to do that. If you progress up to Doom 1 Standard, you see at the bottom, it says ISO-8 Class T1 Level 5. So that's your ISO-8 green, maxed all the way out like we showed with the original Red Hulk, Level 5. Doom 2 ISO-8 Class T2 Level 1. So ISO-8 T2 or Tier 2 is blue. So you will progress from the Tier 1 green to blue, and that is a requirement to get into Doom 2. Doom 3, ISO-8 T2 Level 3, so you need to be blue with 3 of those boxes filled in order to qualify for Doom 3. So we'll look at it from a different angle. Here we're inside, we're previewing Doom 1. On this node up here, it requires characters to be Tech and ISO-8 Tier 1, which is green, Level 5. So you would need a Tech character who's maxed out Level 5 on green ISO to be able to participate in this portion of the raid. Notice too, as you go through the track at level 4, once you have 4 of those rectangles maxed out, once you turn 4 of them yellow, it says you will gain War Ready. So in Alliance War, when you have reached this level of Tier 4 green ISO, your characters gain War Ready, which is a boost in stats in Alliance War. Just gives a flat overall boost in those characters' stats. Well, how do I know which ISO-8 is good for what characters? There's a lot of information out there on that. Here's a few sources for how you can find some of that out. So this is Gambot. This is a Discord server. I'll put the link in the description. So you have Benny Westside. You can get him on Instagram. This is he puts these infographics together, as well as Mac Italy through the Gambot system. You can look at the teams. They'll show you these nice infographics, and they will give you suggestions on what ISO-8 class fits what character. Another Discord server you could use is the MSF Vault. So in there, they just compiled different infographics that different creators have made and puts them all in one place. So at the top, just trying to illustrate that is another one of Benny Westside's infographics that you can find through the Gambot system. And here we have Pope Nick, who has another set of infographics they're both for the Gamma team in this case. We're just showing you that they give you multiple views to look through. Let's also not forget MarvelStrikeForce.com. Used to be called MSF.gg, now known as MarvelStrikeForce.com. You can go there and you can look at their ISO screen here, and it shows you what people are using, right? Anybody who has their account linked to the site, it's showing you a percentage of what ISO-8 people are using, so you can see what's, perhaps the most up to date. This is going to be better for newer characters. Older characters, the ISOs may have changed. The optimal ISO may have changed for older characters, so it might not necessarily be up to date. But for newer characters, this is real time what people are using. Hopefully you found this information to be helpful. We're available to answer questions, obviously, in the comment section. There's tons of people that are more knowledgeable about myself when it comes to ISO. So again, feel free to ask around in the community. Make sure you take care of yourself and your family. Hope you stay well. Peace.